Welcome back to STEM Identity. I'm so glad you found this episode because today's conversation with my friend and colleague, Francisco Cordova, is one of those beautiful examples of what I love this podcast to be, which is talking about how do you do the thing that seems really hard. So something that I find incredibly impressive about people that I'm getting to meet through my current work is that we have a large student body who are also full-time working professionals. So many of them are being funded through their work to come back to school. So they're taking the systems engineering online program. And again, effectively, that means that they have a full-time job that they're working at and they're doing research. And sometimes it works out that a student might be able to tie in their research directly to their work. So there's a lot of overlap. And sometimes it doesn't work out that way. Sometimes the student might have security clearances that don't allow them to do public research on what they're doing for work, or perhaps they have an interest, a new direction they want to take their career in, their research in, so they choose not to tie their research very closely to their work. I honestly don't know how they do it. When I went to school, I would feel extremely lucky that I stayed with my mother during undergrad, 5 years. And then I moved to Fort Collins for grad school, and I barely held it together being a cat mom. And that was it, right? Like I didn't have other responsibilities, few relationships here and there, but nothing crazy. So I got to just really focus on school and being a full-time student. So I have vast admiration for people who can balance both. Francisco is a beautiful example of that. I think he has a lot of really nice things to say. He also has a really cool story about how he got to where he is and where he's going. So without any more intro, let's meet Francisco. Such a fun conversation. I'm really glad you're here. Francisco, I'm so excited
Hi.
to welcome you to STEM Identity today. So my guest today is Francisco Cordova. You're currently a senior systems engineer at Collins Aerospace. And a little bit on your background, you have a bachelor's of science in software engineering at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. You went to their Prescott campus down in Arizona, right?
Yep, Prescott,
Yep.
Arizona.
And then you got a master's science and systems engineering at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University Worldwide. And now you both work at Collins Aerospace. And for reasons we're going to dive into today on the podcast, you went back to school. You're getting a PhD through Colorado State University systems engineering program. But before we kind of dive into the whole back in school, balancing school and work thing, I'd really love to know a little bit about, how did you get here? What got you into aerospace, software engineering, systems
Oh,
engineering? That's a lot of things that you've done over your lifespan so far.
yeah. Wow, that's a really deep question. For the most part, I attribute my love for aerospace engineering and all the systems that followed to having grown up in Houston, where as a kid I went to visit Johnson Space Center, saw a Saturn V rocket laying down, saw all their mock-ups for other various space vehicles, including an Apollo capsule, seeing artifacts from the moon, bits of moon rock, the Omega Speedmaster that astronauts wore to the moon, and just the whole decor. Uh, Later on, they added a space shuttle. All of those things, having grown up with that environment, and the Houston Museum of Natural Science, which had their own petroleum industry sort of STEM learning center, and a little mock-up of Mission Control. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. Let's just say it wasn't deterministic, but I didn't think I had much of a choice to see those things as a kid. My eyes lit up ever since I was very very small. And when I got to about, hey, it's time to think about applying for schools in sophomore year ish, I genuinely Googled aerospace engineer or aerospace university or something like that. And because Embry Riddle pays a lot of money to do advertising, they were the number one result. And also because they have a very good track record of producing engineers that think critically, I hope, and who have hands-on skills because they force them to do a lot of lab work and build a thing, put it in a wind tunnel, build a turbine or a jet engine, spin it up, see if it blows up. I think that the university has ended up with a well-earned reputation for being an aerospace and a pilot school. Obviously, there's the pilot component of it as well. So that got me to Embry Riddle. Just growing up in Houston, loving NASA, loving all those things, I thought I'm going to be an astronaut. Then I kind of realized I don't want to be a pilot for that long. and then get like 2 or 3 PhDs, have to learn 6 languages, and be a decorated combat vet just to be like a maybe okay so-so candidate. And I
Mhm.
thought I would much rather build the spaceships. I'd much rather design the spaceships. SR-71 was a favorite plane of mine as a kid, and I started to deep dive how they made that when I was probably 12 or 13. I saw on PBS the Battle of the X-Planes, a Nova Science Now production. And I thought, wow, this is amazing how Titans of Industry will compete for a bid and create 2 incredible aircraft from scratch. And to see that process happen, I thought that was the coolest thing ever. So that got me to Embry-Riddle, which I think the admission process, to be perfectly candid, is a low bar of entry. I think it's like, oh, they finished an application and hit submit. I think I got in and I was so happy, but after going there and experiencing the admissions process and seeing how hard it seems that they try to weed out students early on, I think that Embry-Riddle, a lot of people are proud of having gone to Embry-Riddle. I'm not one of them. And it's not that for instance, I didn't walk at graduation. Something about the culture there, something about how they treated a lot of their staff during the pandemic, and a lot of other things. It felt that the institution cared more about selling more tickets than they did anything else, so to speak. That being said, I think that the education I got from there was priceless. I think that the connections that I made there got me to where I am today. And I think that every single one of my peers was a driven individual who was provided the tools to succeed. And I think that that does, well, you can put a price on that, and it's a very high price. But I think if you have the means to do so, then it's worth it. That got me to Collins Aerospace. So I worked there in 2020 in a co-op, basically an internship, but it's 8 months long, during which you are still considered a full-time student, and it counts for a few credits of effectively an elective. And you have to provide reports about what you've been learning, and your manager has to fill out effectively a report card for you with Embry-Riddle letterheading, or at least that's how it was in 2020. Of course, 2020, I got there in January, somewhere around March, the world shuts down, at least here on the US side.
Mhm.
So the job itself, instead of being a really excellent opportunity to get hands-on with a lot of cool things, turned more into survive the transition to remote work and sort of survive office politics and a lot of things like that. I still made a lot of good connections, and the fact that I worked there and didn't get fired and had good relationships with all of my peers and my manager especially. When I went back to school, finished all my coursework. When it came time to job hunt again, I just reached out to the Collins Aerospace people, and that's how I ended up getting a full-time offer, which I started in summer of 22. I didn't think I was going to do a master's at that time. I
Okay.
just kind of thought life begins now. I moved to Cedar Rapids, new beginnings. You go where the job takes you. From Houston to Arizona to Iowa, Cedar Rapids, Iowa, of all places. And I think I made it till about October before I realized that I was going stir crazy. Maybe it's like Stockholm syndrome or something like that, where I just needed to feel pressure nonstop to get something done. Or maybe that's just something that I enjoy doing. Maybe it's both. I applied to the Embry-Riddle Worldwide Masters of Systems Engineering because I was hired as a systems engineer. And I really liked what I was doing, and I wanted to improve my skill set. I wanted the credentials too. I know that it pads a resume and that you can get faster promotions and get more pay out of that. And Collins will pay for it. There's a RTX Scholars Program. Any full-time employee is eligible for this. You don't just have to be an engineer. I think it's a marvelous program that anyone would be foolish to take advantage of, but certainly if you have the time, I was kicking myself. I felt like I was wasting money not taking advantage of the program and wasting my own time, because I thought to myself, in a few years' time, if I was just nurturing hobbies, I might have really cool hobbies, but the things that really enable the really big stepping stones, that the doors that I need opened for a long-term career where I can invent my own things, where I can do research, where I can do startups, I don't know, where I can convince people to give me seed money. I think that having more credentials and sort of just knowing more. It's not just the degree. It's like, oh man, I don't know anything about anything. An actual quote of mine that I remember to this day from the application process on why I wanted to get in was I know remarkably little. It's amazing how much I don't know. And I kind of went into that because I realized the more I went into a new program or the more I got asked to look at a certain thing, I would just say, wow, like this is something simple. This is a radio. Collins is primarily a radio company. And you go and you look at a thing that includes a radio, and I go, this 99% of this is completely new to me. I've never seen it before. I am vaguely aware of academically, like the physics and the engineering that might go into what the system is, but I don't know any beyond that. Like, pfft. So I loved that. I love that feeling of not knowing anything. And I wanted to know even more of what I don't know. That's what kicked me into gear. That's what got me through my master's. The Embry-Riddle Worldwide Masters of Systems Engineering, Masters of Science in Systems Engineering is a very collaborative, group project heavy thing, which is highly representative of what my actual real life responsibilities are as an engineer. So I think that was valuable. It covers all the things that I think tenured systems engineers should have, which is a working knowledge of the artifacts that track all of systems engineering, how to produce good paper trails, the systems engineering management plan, a SEER-SYS model to ingest data on how a previous program went and predict how much a new program might cost. Real skills that have real dollar value assigned to them effectively. When you say, I know how to do this, or, yeah, oh yeah, I'm aware of requirements, decomposition, I know these sorts of things, I've had to do them, you're that much more useful. You don't look like a more junior engineer. You seem like someone who can be independent and self-sufficient. And it's, I don't know, it feels good to not have to rely so much on others. For me, personally.
Yeah.
Like, oh, look, I feel so competent. High competencies. I don't know. Maybe that's not fun for everybody, but it is for me. And towards the end of that degree, I realized, why stop now? I think that at the time, I basically said, I've always wanted to have kids at some point, and I thought if I wait, it's not going to happen. I'm going to have to start it later on in life. So I did. It was sort of just another take advantage of the resources that are being afforded to you.
Start your PhD, you mean?
Yeah. It'd be silly not to, because Collins is paying for it, and maybe that says a lot about my own perspective with something you said earlier, just work-life balance, or how do you do 40 to 50 hours a week in the office and then also do a PhD on top of that? To me, I'm so sorry. To me, it's not that hard. I think anyone could do it. I honestly think anyone could do this. I don't think anyone would be happy doing this. I don't think anyone would even potentially be healthy doing this. I don't know that I'm healthy doing this, but I am so overjoyed to have something to do, to look forward to have real stakes and deadlines for producing things that have meaning. It's sort of an extension to how my professional brain works that says, hey, here's the real thing. Go investigate this and tell me if we need to buy this or not. And there's a high dollar value attached to that, so the stakes are kind of high. And if I'm wrong, and later on it turns out I was wrong, my name's attached to this thing that said, Francisco signed off on this. What the fuck? Sorry. So there's...
We swear here. It's fine.
Okay, awesome. We're a swearing positive. So from that perspective, doing more work isn't necessarily the challenge. To me, I need that stimulus regardless. If I wasn't doing a PhD, I might be going insane, stir crazy. Maybe I would be deep diving, starting a side business, truthfully.
Yeah.
All that is to say, like, the career forward side of this conversation is awesome because that's sort of what everyone thinks you should do to be successful. Maybe less and less so now with the rise of influencer culture, the fact that you can legitimately be a commenter on anything: society, internet drama, news, video games, people who play video games. can stream it and make a living off of it. And there are obviously tens of thousands of examples of people who fail to do it, and like hundreds of examples of people who succeed. So I understand that it's like not for everybody. But the fact that those hundreds and not hundreds, the fact that thousands of people can do that and are doing that and have sponsor deals and sell their own merch and have loyal audiences to a certain extent is amazing. And so maybe that's why the career side of it is less obvious to people now. Like doing trades or doing a traditional career has seemed like such a clear option for if you have ambitions of any kind. And I'm not saying you have to have ambitions. I don't think there's anything wrong with just being happy working any job or being an artist and sitting and biking for until you die. But for me personally, like I said early on, seeing NASA, seeing big projects, seeing the upper echelon of human accomplishment and science and STEM, that inspired me and has become an indelible part of my soul. So that's how I got to where I am. I don't know if I answered your question.
You did, and then some. So yeah, that was an amazing response. I have maybe some things I want to track us back into and dig a little more. One thing you said that I wish I felt this way, but sometimes I don't. So I really want to know, like, where did this come from? Tell me your secrets so I can steal them. Is that you basically said, I love that feeling of not knowing anything. You love going in and looking at the radio and being like, I don't understand 99% of what I'm looking at. I can be that way sometimes, but sometimes I feel stupid, frustrated, overwhelmed, all these other options of like, why don't I know this? I'm not good enough. So I'm
Yeah,
curious if that's just something that you feel, you were born with, you had nurtured as a young child. Kind of where does that just like, cool, I don't know this kind of come
sure.
from?
Definitely, I could probably point it to a formative uncle of mine who pushed me
Mm.
to go do things I just didn't want to do as a kid. I wanted to stay inside and watch TV, and he'd be like, "We're gonna go play flag football," and I would just say, "But no, I want to stay in, and I don't like new experiences." And he was like, "All right, get in the car," and I'd be like, "Ah!" And so it was dreadful to feel that car ride, like I was just
Yeah.
fear of the unknown, and then I would have a blast
Mm.
playing flag football with these strangers, just like a rec league type thing.
Yeah.
And I was one of the few kids. Like it was mostly people who do rec league flag football, and so I was sort of this like probably barely teenager who just had a blast. It was just a fun physical activity to go get some energy out. I love being outside, and so the fear of the unknown. I remember becoming more of an appreciation for the unknown very early on in life. And I hadn't consciously thought of it until I started to get challenged about how I learn things and how I have a bottomless well of motivation. That's a direct quote from a coworker of mine. And I started to think, I don't know if there's a secret sauce to it, but like we're all gonna die at some point. There's no point in feeling stressed out about not knowing things. I was gonna say they could write books about how much I don't know, and they have.
It's true. Yeah.
I'm half quoting Ratatouille here.
Entire libraries.
Yeah, truly, there's so many things out there to know that everyone doesn't know, and it's a universally shared experience. And it is certainly frustrating to need to know something and not have access to that knowledge already inside and to not be an expert. That's universal. What maybe is less universal is realizing that that is the first step in the learning process, and that it's easy to feel excited about learning stuff. When you learn about things that you were already priming yourself to be excited about because you said, "Oh, I saw this thing. That's cool. I want to know how to do that." And so you go to YouTube, you go to Google, and you start to see, how do I do this? Or how do I learn about this? How does that gas form naturally? That doesn't make any sense. Can we look at what lightning is doing to atomize, just what are these weird circumstances? So you were excited because you saw a thing that related to, your entire human history of experiences, and it just tickled the brain in just the right way. So when you started to learn that, you didn't know shit about about that thing. You just kind of vaguely were aware of the things that surrounded it, and you deep dove a subject, and that was what was exciting to you. And I say you universally, like
Yeah, yeah.
that's how we obsess over things sometimes. And I don't know. I don't think that there's any reason why that can't apply to everything that you have to learn.
Yeah.
Especially
No.
if it's a job. You have to do your job anyway. You have to, if it's research, if it's academia, if I'm in an office and someone tells me, "Hey, I need you to look at this Ethernet PHY, like a chip that does things," and I have literally never had to do that in my entire life. So I download the documentation from the manufacturer, and I have Googled on the side, and I'm okay. It does this at a high level. I understand that it's providing a physical interface for Ethernet. Cool. Let's lift the hood up and see what crazy amount of functions are happening on this little tiny logic board to see that process through. And the more I Google, the more I am just realizing, oh my God, the next 192 pages of this documentation is going to be dense. That's what troubles me. It's just, oh no, my brain is melting and I need to go touch grass. Not that I don't know anything and that I have a deadline. And if I don't understand this, I'm going to look like I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know what I'm talking about. And so I communicate that as needed.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, I will take a look at this documentation and I will try to provide you um, informed questions that we can ask to so and so that we can inform our own process better. But first, I need to understand this chip, which I don't understand right now. And the person above me will say, cool. I think that there's an understanding, at least where I work, that if a task is handed to you, you aren't already an expert in that thing. Otherwise, they would have just asked you. We need a judgment call made on whether to do this or this. What is the answer? Instead, they say, go and investigate this because we need to find an answer. We need to inform, even if you don't have a good suggestion at the end of it, can you provide us with a few things to go track down, narrow our scope of research, narrow our scope of spending money on telling people what to do? So, in a manner of speaking, my enthusiasm is just for being alive. And the human experience is not knowing things. Just, that's it.
Yeah. No, I love that. I feel like, everything's a spectrum, right? So you can imagine that neither of us are on either end of this spectrum of, I don't know, one end being like, I'm never going to do anything new. I have to know exactly what, 100%. Otherwise, no steps will be taken versus it's fine. I can know nothing. And nothing ever bothers me. You're far on one end. I'm a little further on the other end, but and I can point to some things, as you were saying, like, I had this uncle that nurtured this curiosity and ability to just like go do new things as a child. I'm like, yeah, okay. So as a child, I had a father who was a little more on the protective side, really discouraged, new situations. And there were also some formative learning things where I would try something new with him that he was very capable at, and he would kind of he was not a good teacher, and that's okay. Not everyone is put on this earth to teach. He was definitely not. And he would sort of be like, I don't understand why you aren't getting this immediately. And so that kind of told me as a child, well, you need to
Oh,
understand things immediately. Now, this is probably a good drinking game for this whole podcast for long-term listeners. Whenever I bring up therapy, remember to drink a glass of water. Keep yourself hydrated. This is where therapy has been immensely helpful, right? To kind of like unpack and dig through that crap and just be like, this is not mine to hold anymore. Goodbye. I still
sure.
sometimes am a little like, why don't I get this good first time? But I've gotten so much better. And this year we were chatting a little bit about this before we hit record of, I've really just leaned into, yeah, I'm doing what I'm doing for work, but I'm also trying to ever so lightly be like, what am I really interested about? Not only in work, in my personal life, but in work. If it's a new research area, what am I especially excited about in that new research area? And how can I like pull those threads and do things
Yeah.
that excite me?
You
So
said how can you steer what you're doing 1 degree closer
yeah,
to the thing that you really
even
want to be
just one
doing?
degree. Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like there's people who say this, and I'm like, someday I gotta just like run the math because I'm like, is that really true? Because I feel like you're not a scientist or nor an engineer, and you might be wrong because there is my favorite self-help saying is what is it? Shoot for the moon because if you miss, you may still land upon the stars. And I'm like,
Hmm.
bro, the stars are so much further than the moon. If you landed in the stars and you were shooting for the moon, something really went wrong. Anyways, so I hear people be like,
Yeah.
if you change your life even 1 degree, like imagine you could be steering the ship and you would have landed in, American, and instead you're going to land in I don't know, like the Arctic Circle. And I'm like, I feel like that's not quite right geography wise, but I appreciate the sentiment, right?
Sure.
But no, I really like that. I think people listening, you can kind of identify for yourself, where do you fall on that spectrum? Are you a little bit in the kind of like, I'm uncomfortable to do new things end of the spectrum, or bring it on, I love the adventure spectrum? And either is fine. But I think there are ways to kind of trend towards that more like, cool, I'm here to investigate. I love, like, it sounds like your workplace, at least your team, has a pretty healthy culture around, we're here to figure things out, not we're here to already be the expert.
Sure. I'll also add, this is probably also very universal. When you try something for the first time and you're naturally really good at it, it's a good feeling. Like
Oh, yeah.
maybe people could get tired of it if they're like really that talented. But for the most part, I think if you try a new thing and you're good at it, that's a good feeling. You go, wow, I'm pretty good at this. A little pat on the back. I think if you sort of just shift that a little bit, sometimes you will be really good at things off the bat, and that's outstanding. But I personally sort of feel all the time, I have no idea if I'm going to be good or bad at something, but I want to try it. Like, let's see if I'm bad. If I'm bad, that's great news. Then I can improve. And if I'm good, cool. Another skill I can just add to the thing. And because I've changed my expectations, apparently, of how to encounter new experiences, it's really hard to have a bad first experience. And even when something does go horribly awry and I have exhausted myself or made a complete fool of myself and I was in earnest trying to do well and I failed, it still feels like a net win, or at least a positive experience, because I thought, well, that was embarrassing. That sucked. I really put my foot in my mouth there. But now I kind of know what not to do. That's good. That's a positive. Or on the flip side, I'll try anything twice too. So that was a really bad experience. Let's try that a second time just to make sure that that's like a bad thing for me and I shouldn't continue to try that. So that mindset has kept me pretty happy trying new things, and it is, again, being uncomfortable is inevitable. You're gonna be uncomfortable. It's fine. It sucks. Oh, so many things suck. You know what sucks? Getting old and having knees that pop more and more every day. It's like that. Like, being uncomfortable is just like, it's inevitable. It's on that horizon. It's getting closer. Just be uncomfortable, and you'll find yourself being more and more comfortable every day.
Yeah.
Put that on a mug.
No, I like that. It's a long mug saying, but you big cup of coffee, so it's all good. But yeah, I think I'll, to add to that, I really appreciate that I can kind of listen to myself and be like, you know what, I don't give a shit about this thing over here. And unless it is on fire and there's no one else who can do it, I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna find someone who is good at it or interested in it, and it's gonna be their thing, and that's great. So I feel like a lot of pressure has eased once I sort of leaned into I don't have to be good at everything. I just have to be pretty dang good at the things I need to be pretty dang good at, and continue to grow in everything that I
Sure.
care about and want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you touched on this a little bit, but let's dig in deeper. You were like, PhD, not that hard. I feel like some people might be like, that's an interesting
Yeah, sorry, I should clarify. The
yeah.
coursework was not that hard because the professors are really encouraging and they just want you
Yeah.
to learn. The
Yeah.
research process, what little of it I have gotten to do so far, is as hard as you make it. And
Mm-hmm.
again, man, collecting any significant data set to represent something and to create something new, to come up with a new observation, or to, in a perfect world, make a discovery, that is not an easy thing in and of itself. What's easy is the hard work that goes into it. What's easy is feeling excited about it. What's easy is finding myself at the end of a really long workday, like 36 hours on base. You get home to the hotel. You have to fly home in like 4 hours, just dead inside, and then get to the plane. Have this sort of fleeting thought about something related to the research, and I have a Google deep dive right there in the airport. Just, oh, what is this? And then adding it to the notes. It's easy to find the excitement for things, even when I'm tired. So holistically, that makes it feel like doing a PhD, doing a master's, those have been really easy while working full time, because in contrast to undergrad, I don't struggle to like make ends meet and have food.
That's
I'm not
important.
working a
Yeah.
few jobs at the same time and doing 5 STEM courses at once. Undergrad is insane for that. Having at most two-ish topics to wrestle with, juggle at the same time, has been fine. I think minimizing context switching. I have like work brain, which has a few, maybe 2 or 3 context switches a day, maybe up to a dozen a week. And then after that, I have home brain, and then I have school brain. So it really, I don't know, the school brain in the master's was 1 course at a time, was full time, but it is quite a few hours a week. But at least it's one topic. So you have to go and master the systems engineering management plan. I'll go back to that as an example. And so, what is it at the beginning? Start to develop your own, refine it, and then put one into practice. Analyze existing ones and compare those to the history of the program that we have documented, and so on and so forth. That's fine. That's the same as having a hobby. That's not hard. Doing a PhD is not hard from that perspective.
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting point. I think I've said this before where I literally have never worked harder in my life, and I hope I never do work as hard as I did in undergrad, because it was like 3, 4 hard physics courses and mathematics courses at the same time. I was very fortunate that I was living at home. I didn't have a job, so I didn't have like that additional stress and pressure on top of me. But yeah, it was insane. And like you say, like I think that's not really stressed enough, that once you reach these higher degrees, the master's, the PhD, you're taking one class a semester, and at some point you're done with classes and you're just focused on research. And I know that some people in our program specifically will, I don't know, it sounds like you're kind of blending it, and I do want to touch on this a little bit, but some people will just take all their classes and then be done with classes and then just do their research. Other people will try to blend, a little bit of class, a little bit of research along the way.
Oh, I haven't been blending, but I did have to do the research to write a draft
That's
um,
fair. Yeah.
introduction. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've been doing research since realizing what my topic is going to be, to nurture, to find and nurture relationships, to lean on professionally, to
Hmm.
get information from farmers in the area and industry partners. And in doing so and talking to these people, it has been research. It has been incredibly eye opening and tons of information gathering.
Yeah, so you're really laying the groundwork, but is your plan then that you are going to pretty much mostly focus on finishing up the courses first and then switch over to doing the research portion of the degree?
Yes, I finished my coursework last semester.
Oh, congrats. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So this summer, I'm really focusing on structuring the connections that I have
Yeah.
usefully into my Gantt chart
Okay.
so that I can present what I have and say, this is my plan, and really have a good feeling for how that plan could shift if it's challenged when people ask me questions about it.
Hmm. And
Or when
then,
people say, you have a gap in here, and then I can sort of mentally, oh, I do have a gap there. Do I have someone that could fill that gap, or is that someone else I need to go talk to?
and I know you're early on in the research process, but uh how does this kind of compare to what you do for your industry job? Because it does sound like, your industry job does give you, here's this thing, go figure it out. How does that feel like compares to the PhD research?
Ooh. There are parallels, to be certain. I think that go figure something out is definitely like a daily task on a
Mm-hmm.
smaller scale professionally. Maybe every other day. Sometimes it is less take this idea or take this thing, I need an answer, go figure it out. And it's more understand an existing process. You have all the resources in the world, you have tons of experts all around you. And you just need to understand this process yourself because you are now inheriting ownership of it or accountability of it. The research side of things has felt a lot more like the Wild West because it is, for lack of a better term, it's what I make of it. It's
Right.
my dissertation, it's my research. If I want to produce a thing, I can choose to go do that. It's me who's telling me, go figure this out. And I love that. And it's a lot less structured, which makes it feel a little bit higher stakes because I am a prideful person. For all my faults, I want to take pride in what I produce. I want it to be useful. I want people to look at the models that I hope to produce, and for them to say, "Hey, that's actually a pretty good model. That makes sense. There's it's intuitive enough, and the results are also intuitive. We should do A or we should do B, or the hypothesis based on these models about how we could invest in our cyber posture for U.S. agriculture. That does seem like a worthwhile hypothesis to go test. Please do a postdoc. Something to that effect. I don't want it to be the yeah, this meets the bar for a PhD and it's a good contribution. I don't want that. I don't want the
Yeah.
I want people to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want people to look at this piece of research and go, "Wow, I'm really concerned." I want people to feel the concern that I feel,
Mm-hmm.
not for a negative reason. I have a gut feeling because of the industry that I work in, because of the farmers who I have already talked to that have voiced nothing but concern. They know they're screwed. They know if the GPS lock on their driller, the thing that puts seeds in the ground, isn't working, the machine won't put seeds in the ground. It has a software lock to prevent stuff from happening if it just doesn't have perfect GPS.
Mm-hmm.
They know they are one bad weather day, one cyber attack away, some bad scenario. I mean, they don't think about it in those terms from what I've gathered so far. They just think about it as the technology isn't working.
Yeah.
They're that far away from, well, can't drive my equipment.
Yeah.
They know they have external dependencies. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And what I'm looking at, not only in that sense of the nitty gritty farm equipment side of things, but the whole logistical, all agriculture depends on computerized systems, things that have microchips, anything from the ECU, the thing that controls how fuel is injected into everyone's engines today. Unless you have a really old engine that has a carburetor that isn't computerized in any way. If that gets taken out somehow by a virus or by a solar flare or by an EMP or something, the thing doesn't drive. Your motor isn't going to get fuel injected into it. So how does agriculture get impacted if there's no vehicles? It's a huge question to ask. But I think that the intuition that I have started to develop is that we're vulnerable. We're probably very vulnerable, and I hope to gather data that supports that. I would love to be proven wrong. But I have a feeling that I'm right. I'm chasing that feeling, and we're going to gather the data that we can. We're going to make some models, and hopefully the reaction that I hope to get from my defense is a lot of people going wide-eyed, realizing that there is some value in it, and wanting to push the research forward because they realize how sorely it's needed.
Yeah, I think that's something I love about systems engineering is that I was honestly, again, I'm a little bit new to the field, and reading through a lot of the proposed research plans from the class I taught last semester. I was like, dang, there's a lot of work on what you're describing, this kind of foundational. I think there's a problem here, and I'd like to outline the extent of the problem. Not, I'm going to solve every step of the problem. It's even like coming up with the insight that there's an issue that's being overlooked, whether it's cybersecurity in agriculture or cybersecurity in oil and gas or whatever have you. I think that's really exciting, and actually that's probably part of why I like being in systems engineering, because that's kind of where my brain sits at. It doesn't really sit at and now I'm going to figure out the correct computer software so that this problem never ever happens. No, that will no, my brain just cry in the corner if you try to get something like that. But
also
yeah.
Well, say it's also systems. That's the best thing about systems is you have to think big picture, and therefore, it is inherent to the field that there will be an impact, that there will be your research, even if it's just narrowing down the spotlight, means people will have a better use of resources to go solve real issues. If we were in a comp sci department, we could make something that catches all exceptions somehow, and or for a very particular application, so that it can never freeze, so that the computer can never get locked up in this really niche application, so that rockets never flip upside down or something.
But the computer science people have to know that that's an issue.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And that's where we come in.
Yeah,
I love it. No, and it does sound like you're research, and definitely correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like your research for PhD and what you do for Collins Aerospace, they're not really the same. So how do you, some people get to go and they basically just like do research for their company as they're getting their degree, and so they don't lose their mind and they're able to live their lives. If you're doing really separate research from your actual job, you've talked about it a little bit, but maybe let's go in even deeper on, how do you separate the two? How do you keep moving forward on both? You have a cute dog, you have a family, like you don't just want to be working and PhDing for all of your time.
Yeah.
What does that look like, that balance for you?
Wow. Well, I think there certainly must be a balance of some kind because I feel okay, and I think that I have a very happy home life, and I nurture my friendships as often as I can. And sometimes even during a workday, I think there's a lot of value in acknowledging that you don't just sit down at 6:30 a.m. and then produce
Yep.
valuable output for 9 hours.
Yeah.
That's impossible. Well, it's not impossible, but you can't sustain that. To that end, I think my work days are sometimes very high stakes because something will be asked of me that I know will take that hard focus for the full 9 hours and then some.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it will even have to occur for an entire week. Just every single day is going to be a long day. Let's get through it. In those cases, I think I have been dutifully enabled by my leadership, not given carte blanche to do whatever I need and pull in whoever I need, but certainly have told me, you're owning this task. It is the highest priority task we have. This is a deliverable to someone that we are getting paid by. Do it. And that means I can tell everyone else to fuck off. And if they, oh, can you help me? Nope. And actually, I need you to drop what you're doing for me. And so, in a manner of speaking, that is done very strategically. It's not careless. It's not just, oh, Francisco thinks he's all that. There are tasks. We all listen to what our management tells us is the highest priority, and we work as a team to get that done. In some limited cases, because of the distribution of work and how priorities lay out and how expertise aligns, I get tasked with a lot of these really niche knowledge and interest things, almost always around the topic of cybersecurity and things that exist in that realm. So as it so happens, my research is very cybersecurity centric. So it's not exhausting. Mm-hmm. I get to definitely apply the same skill set that I have. The domains are going to be different. Agriculture versus defense are different-ish. But from a cybersecurity standpoint, they aren't that different. It's still vehicles that get used. It's still there's nothing fundamentally different about a microchip that is used in defense versus in a tractor. And in fact, the private sector tends to have more advanced microchips because those are just corporations that are, if we make the most advanced thing faster and sell it, we will make more money because people will think our thing is better. Whereas in defense, it's the acquisitions process. Okay, we need requirements. Let's spend 9 months making requirements on what the computer chip needs to do. Okay, let's put out a request for proposal from these contractors to make this microchip. And then they wait 9 months for these contractors to make their microchip designs that show how they're going to probably meet some of these requirements and capabilities. And then they spend 3 months looking at all of the proposals once they're all submitted. And then they award to vendor A. Hey, congrats, you guys got it. You had the most competitive bid with a good balance of cost to performance. Well, the other 3 vendors were like, fuck that, and they sue vendor A. And so they spend 8 months in court so that something, well, we think that wasn't a fair award because there was bias, because whatever, it wasn't ethical. So there's a need on day 0 for a capability. We need a microchip. There's an identified need. We need a microchip for this function. And 3 years later, work commences on that thing. On an accelerated scale. That's me being generous. And that's the reality of defense contracting.
Yeah, fair enough.
So while there are state-of-the-art things that are happening, and certainly the pieces of the defense world which are classified, have things that are advanced. They're intrinsically sensitive because they're advanced. So there are capabilities, but like from a core fundamental technology perspective, if we're talking about cybersecurity, of which computers are an inherent part, their computers are protein to cybersecurity. Um, the microchips that NVIDIA produces are the most advanced microchips on the planet, full stop. you know, and Intel and Apple and so on and so forth. So when John Deere has a problem with the computers that control their GPS modules and all that stuff, it's not a different set of cybersecurity principles that get applied to it. It's the exact same. Who has access to those computers? Is the code safe? Can it get locked up accidentally? Does it have bugs? Is it connected to the internet? Can someone remotely access that? If it depends on GPS, what happens if GPS goes away? Does the rest of the computer fail to function? It's just all the fundamentals of cybersecurity, really of information assurance as a bigger topic, and whether or not the service that the computer is supposed to provide is being provided. So my work is very parallel to what I'm researching. Or in that sense, I get to apply much the same skill set and lens for having a family and a personal life outside of those things. I think I'm just a very bubbly person, and I am definitely outgoing, and I love to rock climb, I love to run, and I love to do tons of hobbies that end up being around other people. So it's easy. I like to have fun. Maybe the biggest challenge ends up being just truly how much time there is in a day. Go to work, I know I have to go and research this thing for my PhD research. And then once I'm done, it might be dark, and maybe we don't get to socialize that day. And maybe that happens more days during a week than not. But when semesters have been tough, I have tried to make weekends the time where basically I say enough is enough. Have all Saturday or all Sunday to just be a personal day for whatever I want to do. Be that hanging out with other people or going out and grabbing food with folks and so on. You name it.
Yeah, that makes sense. You did mention with your industry work that you have like these, it's industry. It has deadlines, whether they're fast or slow. PhD, so it kind of depends, and I'll give like the listeners a little bit of context. There's two flavors, I would say, two broad flavors of PhD. One is you are being funded to get your PhD, and that funding it's a finite amount of funding, right? Like there are deliverables usually, and there's a deadline. The funding's going to run out in 1 year, 3 years, whatever it is. You're getting an online PhD. Your company is paying you to go to school. Now, they might have some limits, they might not, but the deadline pressure isn't really there. And the go do these deliverables isn't really there. Yeah, we tell our students, okay, you need to have, X amount of peer reviewed products. And here's, there are some deliverables and deadlines, but they're all really ambiguous, especially for the online. So, how do you help motivate yourself through that process?
I think the motivation to actually produce the thing
Hmm.
is definitely self-imposed pressure to not stagnate and really to get it over with. I mean, technically I could spend, I think there is a limit to how long they'll pay for
10
you to do a
years. Yeah.
PhD. Oh, I mean, even like academically, yeah, it's 10-year program cap. But I think like the money side of it, they won't let pay for any. I think it's if it's longer than 5 years for a PhD or 6 years.
Okay. All right. There's a bit
So
of a
there's
pressure.
a little bit of pressure there. It might be more than 5 years. That might not be enough. But I don't know. I don't have a good answer to that. I think I just love the idea of getting this done sooner rather than later.
Yeah. I mean, you said you want to have kids, that's like
Yeah,
get her done. Get the PhD done.
absolutely. As soon as I can see with high confidence that the amount of rigor that is owed to this sort of set of artifacts I hope to produce can be met within 9 months, like we're starting a family.
Yeah.
Like that's how I think that's another big motivator is, man, we got to get this done.
Yeah.
Family planning definitely is a major factor of that. I think the other factor outside of that is outside of the monetary limit from work and the family planning side of things is we need this now. I don't want to be the DoD and or DOW now and be like, we have a need for cybersecurity, and then 3 to 5 years later produce something helpful.
Yeah.
We have a need today. Time is of the essence, and the earlier we can produce something, the sooner it can be utilized or attempted to be utilized, so we know if it was worth anything. Better to have that happen sooner than to wait and realize, oh, this is worthless. You wasted 5 years. Damn. I would rather waste 4 years than 5 years. So
Yeah, no, I think this is all around that sort of, finding your why. Why do you do research? Why do you have the job you have? And if you really can't answer that question, then maybe, like I was saying earlier, what are you interested in? Can you start to nudge yourself towards things that you're a little bit more excited about? Because, we don't really want to just be stuck in jobs that we don't care about or degrees
yeah,
we don't care about. Yeah, it's one thing to just be like, my research project for my degree isn't the most exciting thing on planet Earth, but I know that it's going to open the doors for me that get me to the most exciting thing on planet Earth. But to kind of never trend towards that, I think is, I think it's not. I don't know how widespread it is. Like, I'd actually love to see the data on that, but I think it's more common than we realized, that people are just kind of like, gonna
stagnating.
grind, just gonna do the
Yeah.
thing, get the paycheck.
Oh yeah. I mean, at least in industry, I know anecdotally that there are many people who it's just a job.
Yeah,
It's not like they lack ambition. It's just that they're content enough coming in every day, meeting the responsibilities of their pay grade, and going home. I kind of get that too. Like, there's nothing wrong with just enjoying your life, and you don't have to have ambitions to go produce some new thing. Especially the people who have like families at home. Just spending quality time with people you love is all you need in life.
yeah. I think that's. I do agree with you. I do think that it's good to kind of identify that within yourself of like, is that what you want, or are you really like pushing for something? And whichever path you take, like, lean in and own it. But if you're just kind of like in this weird in between zone, or you feel like you should be on one path when really you want to be on the other path, I feel like that's where a lot of like internal tension comes up, and you start to like really just like feel stress all the time. You don't realize why. Oh, it's because you're literally trying to drag yourself down a path you don't want to go down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
um
that stresses me out just thinking about that. Like, doing what you think you should be doing, but not what you want to be doing. Nah, could not be me.
Yeah. No, I'm taking notes. I'm learning lessons from you, so I appreciate it. So people,
You quit your job tomorrow, and you're like, I wanted to be a painter this whole time. So,
well, I'm a terrible visual artist. I finally picked up what is it, like the coloring books for adults. Like, I decided, what, like, anything
yeah.
actually, it
Do
would
they bring you joy?
kind of, yeah. So
Okay.
I really liked, the only thing, like, I've never been that excited about visual art myself, like doing it myself. The only thing I ever really enjoyed was shading, like, doing like a nice fade or whatever. So I was like, I'm gonna get a adult coloring book, I'm gonna get a set of pencils, and I'm gonna shade. um Super fun, super relaxing, actually do like it. I will note that those adult coloring books, some of them are very hard, and apparently I needed like coloring for children or something, because there's so many little boxes. Like, I'm doing this like cool iguana with henna and leaves and flowers and stuff thing, and I'm like, it's a little overwhelming, not gonna lie. Yeah, but anyways, they might be, working, thinking about going back to school. Do you have advice? You kind of just did the like, get her done, let's get in there, let's get out. But any other thoughts for people who might want to go back to get a degree? Maybe they have the option through work or anything for
Yeah.
getting
I mean,
motivated.
it just depends. I would say if you have the option, especially like a RTX style, where the corporation says, we'll pay for you to go to school, here are the annual limits, go
Mm-hmm.
get it. I would say if you can physically find 8 hours in a week to tackle a degree, you can do it.
Yeah.
Um, sometimes there are requirements for synchronous class attendance if it's online. If it's in person, certainly you're going to have to find the time to drive somewhere, sit down, absorb things, drive home. I understand a lot of people really do run into the brick wall of, I don't have time. What I would encourage people to do is to challenge the notion that they don't have time because they feel like then they won't have time for their social life and their friends. The time away from ordinary hobbies, I think, is a lot less impactful than people realize.
Mm.
Unless you have a really fixed schedule, where I realize people do, for instance, volleyball. There's like a rec league volleyball place here, and it is Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday afternoons from like 6 to 8. And if you're committing to that, it definitely might feel like you don't have any time for yourself if you add on school to that.
Yeah.
And especially if there's classes during those time periods, and it would never work. I really like playing volleyball. I don't want to let go of those friend groups. But if that's the only thing that's stopping you is, the time spent with people who mean a lot to me, and it's convenient that they're all in one place, I think that is a sacrifice worth making, because you can make time, you can be deliberate with the energy that you put into those friendships. Also, everyone has those things. If people in friend groups start having kids, start having other time commitments, those things come and go all the time. And I think that it's worth enriching yourself, learning new things, learning to challenge yourself, and continue, and even maybe perhaps forcing yourself to be more deliberate with the time you make to spend time with people that you care about in the process. And then, if the barrier of entry is that time, challenge it. I think you can do it. I think anyone can really do it. I don't think that everyone should. I think that anyone can. And I think I said this before we started this call. Anyone could do it and have the same sort of attitude that I have. I don't think anyone would be as happy or as healthy necessarily. But I think a lot of that comes from the fact that stress is deleterious to people's health in so many ways, in ways we probably aren't even done characterizing yet. So if it does stress you out to have the deadlines, to have another thing on your plate, I mean, that's a really tough thing to change. But on the flip side, if it isn't a source of stress for you, like it isn't for me, then it's cool. It's fun. It's borderline easy.
In fairness, I think you're on the extreme end of like, this isn't stressful for me. I think most people find balancing any multiple things can be stressful at times, but maybe it's more the considering, is it worth it on balance? I have a podcast. Podcast is not the same level as getting a degree, but the dang thing comes out every week, right? So there's some level of whether I cram it all into one weekend or I kind of spread it out over the month, like I have to put in X amount of time consistently so this thing comes out for my 7 to 10 listeners. Hi, Mom. Thank you. You know?
Hi, Anna's mom.
She's great. She'll appreciate you. I think that, and when I talk to people and I'm like, yeah, I have a podcast, or I talk about like, I'm dabbling in fiction writing or the music that I've done, like all throughout school and everything, you just find time for what matters to you. So if the degree matters to you, sometimes my podcast is stressful. Sometimes my music is kind of stresses me out. I don't care. On balance, it's worth it. So there's also that consideration of like, on balance, is this a net positive for me?
I would agree wholeheartedly with that. And if the question is, what would you say to people who are thinking about getting that advanced degree? If you've already done a bachelor's and a master's, or even just a bachelor's, you can 100% do a PhD. Doing a bachelor's is hell, is living hell. I don't think that was easy. I think that was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, and I almost failed out. That is how brutal undergrad is in STEM, when you have 5 courses, 5 different domains of knowledge to absorb and excel in. PhDs and a master's are really more focused than that. It's a lot easier. It's a less narrow slice of information to have to ingest. So I think if that would be a really good litmus test, is if you did a bachelor's, oh my God, you can do the other stuff. It can be daunting to think about, I'll be in school for another 4-5 years, but it's not the school you were in before. It is a different animal altogether.
Yeah. And in fairness, assuming nothing horrible happens, you're still going to be alive in 4 to 5 years. So time's going to pass regardless.
Yeah, it's an investment in yourself, just like the 4-year degree was.
Yeah.
You thought that was necessary for the career that you needed. It probably was, unless you tragically went into a different field other than what you have a degree in, which happens. But if you
Tragically, I'm excited that I've gotten into new fields.
oh, fair, fair. I meant more the like tangentially, oh, I got an English degree and now I am a chef because they love being a chef, but they realize that why did they get the English degree?
Yeah, fair. All right. Yeah, I feel like as long as you were enjoying the degree at the time, it all pans out.
Yeah, if it doesn't destroy your current life through
Yeah,
mechanisms of debt, yeah.
true. That's the killer, but that's maybe another episode for another
Yeah, completely different episode.
day. No, I know that we're running up on your time here. So the last two questions I like to ask of any interview, STEM identity podcasts in part about our identities in our STEM careers, jobs, school, whatever else. So the first one is, if you think back and you can start the clock at wee baby Francisco or maybe undergrad or whatever, but thinking back past over the past years, what has been your favorite shifts or update in identity that you are really proud of nowadays?
Hmm. Wow, I feel like I've known who I am since I was very young. So maybe that was like really early on. It's just realizing that I'm just a happy person,
Yeah, I love
and
that.
and that I like the feeling of helping others. I think that when I was a kid, anytime we'd pass a car that was pulled over, I would tell my dad like, "Hey, can we help them?" And he'd be like, "Yeah, I'm sure." As a parent, I'm sure he was having a really long day already,
Yeah.
and he was like taking me home from school, and the last thing he wanted to do was like do something kind of potentially dangerous. Like this could be some freak or some weirdo or someone who's like trying to lure people into a trap. Oh, my son wants to help them, so that's what he does. And so we would pull over and we would offer whatever we could. If it was a jump start, changing their tire, if it was just giving them a lift to the gas station, or if it was giving them a ride home or something.
Mhm.
And that has never changed. But I think that that's probably the thing about me that brings me the most joy is trying to help others, trying to be involved with people and connecting with them. So whenever that shift happened, which I can't really put my finger on, that's my favorite one.
Awesome.
Realizing that I just love people.
Yeah, and I mean maybe this is the answer to the flip side question, which is a core piece of identity you're proud that you still have.
Oh yeah, that and my endless commitment to the bit for all the probably like STEM brain stuff that's going on here, and how I love to speak in sort of matter of fact ways that make it sound like I know what I'm talking about. I will do anything for a laugh. Like a cheap laugh is worth 8 hours of hard work. I will spend an entire day doing something really stupid if it means that someone will come in and be like, "You're still doing this?" And I'll be like, inside, I have a really dry sense of humor too, so it doesn't pan out. Most of the time, people just think I'm crazy. But that's my favorite part of me is just the fact that I think I'm hilarious.
Mhm.
And my fiance will just, roll her eyes at that. But it's true. I think I will make jokes for me. That's it. And then she'll just be annoyed. But it makes life worth living if you can laugh at yourself and with yourself.
I think you need a YouTube channel. Francisco sticks to the bit or something.
Oh man, don't give
Just
me
workshop
more
it.
ideas. Yeah, well, I mean, after PhD, I was thinking probably like med school,
Yeah, that
and
makes
then probably a doctor of engineering after that.
sure. The
And
end.
then I feel like that'll give me the good foundation to start my film production company, which I really hope to take off in a few years. I want to be like James Cameron,
Yeah.
build intense technical rigging and go deep diving and explore the depths of the ocean.
Okay, well, I mean,
But that's like plan C. Plan A is not even the career. Plan A is my book writing. I'm writing fiction.
hell yeah.
I'm gonna be a successful author. Yep.
Yep. I am sure we'll break through the noise and make it big there.
Absolutely. There's never been a better time to self-publish.
I mean, you're not wrong. Let's be honest about
It
that.
is a low stakes game now. I mean, you can just kind of put it out there and hope for the best.
Exactly. My mom has a book. It's great. I'll link it in the show notes, by the way. Like, you guys should check it out. It's
Perfect.
a memoir with some poetry and ravens, which I love ravens. But all right. Well, it's been so much fun to have you on. I'm probably gonna have to have you back on, especially if you keep getting more degrees, because I'm gonna be like, how's that DEng going? How's that
Yeah.
but
Yeah. I
really
like the field of neuropathology, and I think it's only like 8 years. So, like you
cool.
said, those 8 years are going to pass anyway. You may as well.
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna die at some point. Might as well get more degrees.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing.
I'm joking about the MD, but I love to say that.
Yeah, set the bar.
Yeah. I think that in a manner of speaking, the friendships that I have. Oh, it's my fiance. Hello. I'm in an interview with Dr. Anna Hodshire of Colorado State University.
Hello?
She says hello. Okay. So, my fiance, everybody.
That was a great conversation. I feel like I could listen to Francisco forever. He has if this was, the 1940s, I would imagine he would be a radio personality because he has such a great voice and so soothing and so interesting. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. We heard a lot of things. We learned a lot of things, had some ideas in there that were really worth taking away. I always provide some sort of what I'm taking away from the episode. I call these learn and move your feet. In other words, you heard a lot of things, but something we can implement, move your feet right away. And I absolutely loved his comments around you make time for the things that you care about. And also those things don't have to take endless amounts of time. And that really resonates for me. I run into people, I mentioned I'm doing this podcast and they're like, how do you have time to do the podcast? I'm like, I don't know. I care about it. This matters to me. So I find time for it. I think the same is for school. Obviously school is a little more intensive than a podcast. This podcast takes me, I don't know, probably 5 to 15 hours in any given month. Not crazy. I find time for it. Same with writing, same with music, these other things that I really care about. So maybe for you, if you feel like there's something that you really want to do, you want to do more of, or you'd like to start, what's just a little step you could take to just do a little bit of that thing that you're excited about? Whether it's going back to school, maybe, the first step is you got to find a program. Go research some programs you're excited about. Oh, it's that you did find the hour to research programs you're excited about. So you do have a little bit more time than you might have realized. And I realize this is really hard, right? Depends on where you are in your stage of life. If you have young children running around, significant caretaking responsibilities, other things like that, can always make it feel like your time is never your own. But what is the support network that's available to you that you can go to and say, hey, I really need a couple hours because I'm going to do the thing that's going to make me so very happy. Because when you're happy, the people around you get to be happy. When I'm happy, the people, my household, my friends, my family, I feel like everything is going well. When I'm not happy, it is like a hurricane of rage, which is not something that anybody wants to be around. So take time for you. You make the time for the things you care about. Such good advice. All right. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate you finding this episode. If you found it useful, please share it with a friend, subscribe with your podcast app, all those good things. Leave a review. They mean a lot to me. I really appreciate them. This podcast is not affiliated with my research and teaching roles at Colorado State University. It's a part of my belief that we all have challenging jobs, and those jobs can be really amazing if we acknowledge that there are challenges in these jobs and we work through them. And what better way to work through them than as a community rather than by yourself? You can hang out with me on Instagram, STEMdenity, LinkedIn, Anna Hodshire. All the links for everything are always in the show notes. And if you stick around to the very, very end, I always drop a song of the week. I'm very excited about music. Something that Francisco and I have connected over and become friends over is music. We absolutely both have very similar tastes. It's a little eerie sometimes. I'm kind of like, you're like, double me in Iowa over there. But one of the new songs that I learned from him that I absolutely love is a song called Gods and Heat by the band Tobacco, all caps, Tobacco, Gods and Heat. Really cool song. I keep meaning to check out more Tobacco songs, so I'm going to do that right after recording this episode. I hope you enjoyed this, and I can't wait to talk to you next week.